Watch the energy closely. It requires perfect balance.
Wow, this is amazing!
At some point in your life, you had a clear and vivid memory of something that happened. The place, the people, what was said, how you felt. A memory so sharp you would swear to it in court. And then someone who was there, in the same situation, said it didn't happen that way. Maybe it barely happened at all. And you argued. Because you remembered. Because you were there. Because the scene was too clear to be invented. What you probably didn't know is that this clarity is not evidence that the memory is real. Clarity is what the lie feels like when it comes from inside. And that's not a metaphor. It's a conclusion that decades of research in cognitive neuroscience have made incontestable. The human brain does not store memories like a recorder. It reconstructs them every single time you access them, and every time it reconstructs, it modifies. With each recollection, the memory you retrieve is not the original. It's a copy of the last copy. And that's only the beginning of the problem. Because the same system that distorts your past is also filtering your present in a way most people never realize is happening. And the question that will guide this entire video is, if the mind lies, what's left that's actually reliable in what you think you know? Let's start with the experiment that permanently changed the way scientists see human memory, because it's unsettling in a way that no abstract explanation can replicate. It was 1974. Elizabeth Loftus, a psychologist at the University of California, showed volunteers videos of car accidents and then asked them questions about what they had seen. It seemed simple, but there was a detail in the way the questions were phrased that was being manipulated. For one group of participants, the question was, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? For another group, the exact same question used the word smashed instead of hit. A single different word. And that single word significantly changed the speed participants estimated, with the group that heard smashed reporting consistently higher speeds. But the result that went down in history came 1 week later, when Loftus asked the same participants whether there had been broken glass at the scene. There had not. The video showed no broken glass at any point. But participants who had heard the word smashed, the word that evoked greater intensity, confidently reported having seen broken glass. They were not lying. They were remembering something that never happened, with the same conviction anyone would have when remembering something that actually did. The false memory felt exactly like the real one. That was just the beginning. What came next is even more disturbing. In subsequent studies, Loftus and her team achieved something that seemed impossible, implanting entire memories of events that had never occurred. Childhood memories. Specific memories, with sensory details, with associated emotions, with a feeling of recognition that comes when something feels right. In a protocol that became known as the lost in the mall technique, researchers convinced adult participants that as children they had gotten lost in a shopping mall and been found by a stranger. It had never happened. The families confirmed it had never happened. And yet approximately 25% of participants not only believed the story, they developed elaborate memories of the event, adding details that had never been suggested by the researchers. The mind didn't just accept the lie. The mind decorated it. Here is what that means in practical terms, before any philosophical interpretation. Every memory you have of the past, of an argument with someone, of how a situation unfolded, of what was said and how it was said, passed through the same reconstructive process that produced memories of broken glass that never existed. This is not a question of having a good or bad memory. It's how memory works for every human being without exception. Your past, as you experience it, is a story the brain is retelling right now, not a recording of what happened. And now comes the first real twist in this story, and it's the one that's most uncomfortable. If it were only memory, only the past, the problem would be manageable. You could, in theory, be more humble about what you remember and more open to other versions. But the same architecture that distorts the past also actively filters the present, in real time, without you perceiving any process happening at all. And the research confirming this is even more recent and even more unsettling. In 2025, a study published in the journal Nature Communications mapped, with precision never before possible, what happens in the brain when a person receives information that contradicts what they already believe. Researchers used magnetoencephalography to track neural activity during real-time decision-making. What they found was technically elegant and humanly troubling. Information that contradicts a pre-existing belief is encoded by the brain with total precision. It arrives. It's processed. It's there, in the parietal cortex, just as sharp as any other piece of information. And then, at the moment that information should influence behavior, at the moment it should change the conclusion, it contributes significantly less than information that confirms what the person already believed. To put it plainly, your brain sees the evidence that contradicts what you think. It processes it. And then, when the time comes to act, it behaves as if that evidence barely existed. Not because you are dishonest. Not because you are ignorant. But because there is an active neural mechanism, documented by brain imaging, that systematically discounts inconvenient evidence and amplifies confirmatory evidence. This mechanism has a name: confirmation bias. And it is not a weakness of irrational or uninformed people. Studies show it operates in doctors during diagnoses, in judges during sentencing, in scientists during data analysis. It affects, with greater or lesser intensity, every human brain that has ever existed, because it is not a flaw. It is an evolutionary feature that became a bug. The evolutionary logic is straightforward. In an environment of scarce time and information, a system that processed everything with equal weight would be too slow to be useful. The brain needs shortcuts. It needs categories. It needs beliefs that function as filters. The problem is that those filters were built for an environment where response speed mattered more than factual accuracy, and where reality was concrete, immediate, and physical. In a world where the most important beliefs are abstract, complex, and rarely verifiable in the present moment, those same filters produce systematic distortion where they should produce neutral judgment. And here comes the second twist, the one most people don't see coming, and the one that completely changes what thinking well actually means. There is a fairly common instinct that says, if I knew more, if I had more information, I would think better. More data corrects biases. More knowledge produces more accurate conclusions. The intuition is so plausible it seems obvious. But the empirical data tells a different and darker story. Studies conducted by Brendan Nyhan and Jason Reifler starting in 2010, and replicated in various contexts since, documented what became known as the backfire effect. When people with strong beliefs receive factually accurate information that contradicts those beliefs, a significant portion of them don't change their minds. They reinforce the original belief. The factual correction, rather than updating the position, triggers defensive mechanisms that make the original position more rigid. More information, if not accompanied by something else, doesn't fix the problem. In some cases, it makes it worse. What this reveals is that the problem is not an information deficit. It's the processing system through which information passes. And that system includes not only the cognitive mechanisms we've described, but also something that's rarely mentioned in these discussions: identity. When a belief is sufficiently integrated into a person's identity, when "I believe this" starts to sound like "I am this," contradicting the belief begins to sound like a personal threat, not a factual correction. And the brain responds to personal threats with the same mechanisms it would use against physical threats: defense, rejection, counterattack. Not because the person is bad or foolish, but because the human nervous system doesn't clearly distinguish between a threat to the ego and a threat to survival. So what do you do with all of this? First, it's important to resist the easiest conclusion this kind of information produces: that other people are victims of these mechanisms and you are capable of seeing past them. That move, "I'm different, I think critically, it's the others who are manipulated," is itself a manifestation of confirmation bias. The research doesn't identify an immune subpopulation. It identifies universal mechanisms that vary in intensity but not in presence. Anyone who believes they are completely above these processes is probably deeper inside them than they realize. Second, there is an important distinction the research supports between strategies that work and strategies that don't when it comes to reducing the impact of these biases. The strategy that consistently doesn't work is simple exposure to more information or direct refutation of beliefs. What the research suggests works better operates before the moment of disagreement. It's the deliberate construction of the habit of actively looking for evidence that contradicts what you already think, not to change position for any reason at all, but to ensure the position survives real challenge, not just the simulated challenge your own mind creates when you're only confirming what you already believe. There's an exercise that several decision-making researchers describe in different ways, but that shares a common structure. Before reaching a conclusion about anything that matters, ask not, what supports what I already think? Which is what the brain does by default. But, what, if true, would force me to conclude the opposite? It's a simple question. It's genuinely uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable precisely because it runs against the impulse that the confirmation bias system produces automatically. The memory you have of your past is a reconstruction. The perception you have of the present is filtered. The conclusions you draw are influenced by mechanisms operating below the level of consciousness. That doesn't mean truth is inaccessible. It means it costs more than most people are used to paying. More than the comfort of finding one more piece of evidence that confirms what you already knew before you started looking. And maybe the most honest question you can leave this video with isn't, what do I believe? It's, how would I know if I were wrong, and would I be willing to see that evidence when it arrived?